Good morning, everybody. I'm Catherine McHugh, a member of the Unitarian Universalist Area Church at First Parish in Sherburne, and one of the worship associates. I am here to welcome you. Welcome to this house of worship. May you feel welcome and held in the presence of the holy. And if you'd like, you can take a deep breath and just simply let it out and become present right here and right now. May you find nourishment to fill your deepest hungers. May you feel the warmth of this community surrounding you, holding you, healing you. May you reflect on the mystery that surrounds us and share blessings for the great mystery that lies ahead. The worship space created here is sacred. Let us see the sacred in each other. We are a community, a human family, worn and broken, and healing and hoping. Bring all that you are, all that you love, and rest a while. May we find peace in our presence here together. Welcome. And just a few announcements from Jason. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Jason McLean, your ministerial intern. And if anyone is joining us for the first time, we particularly give you a warm welcome. So I have a few announcements. We need some help, I should say. And there's a lot of ways that we could use your help. And as our polity is congregational, we look to you, to the congregation, for this shared ministry. So, to that end, we're looking for some chalice lighters and for flowers. So you can see the sign up. The sign up for these will both be on the sign up Genius. And the obviously for the chalice lighting, and then the flower for someone will be a slide in that week's service. So the next announcement is that the Good is New shop will officially open on October 13th, but there is a special opening, and I think the industry term is soft. It's a soft opening on Wednesday the 6th for members of UUAC. So it's all a bustle downstairs, so we'll see you then. Another announcement is the men's group is back up and running, and they'll have their first meeting Tuesday evening, October 5th, under the tent from 6:45 to 8 p.m. No need to sign up, just show up with a listening ear and an open heart. And then finally, we are trying to streamline the announcements, so please do refer to the newsletter that Dara works so hard on completing. You'll find everything in there. And so once again, I welcome everyone and our folks at home. Maybe we turn around and just give them all, send them some love. And from that, greet one another.
So friends, before we're going to play our introit here in a second, and it's going to be on, good morning by the way, it's going to be on video, and the reason this is a big deal especially today is that it's the first time the choir, they've been rehearsing a couple of Thursdays now, right Sarah? So Sarah's been working so hard with them, and this is a recording that they did on Thursday night with lights. They were all up, it was amazing. So this is going to be our introit for the reconstituted choir. And we're looking at India and Dara, who did an amazing tech job up in the loft. All right.
So lovely to hear our choir singing together again. Will you join me in our opening words, which are on our screens? We are all longing to go home to some place we have never been. We can only catch glimpses of it from time to time. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throat. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. A circle of healing. Someplace where we can be free. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, Winds Be Still. The words will be on the screen, but we invite you to hum along, as is our practice in these times. Please remain standing as Tessa Lilly comes forward to light our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. And let us say together our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. Please hum along.
Okay, here we are at the Wonderbox moment. So I invite everyone that feels young at heart, that is young, both in heart and age, anyone that feels so moved to come forward, come around to this area. As you gather, I just have a question for India. If I stand here, am I still in the shot for the folks at home? Okay. Things you didn't used to have to think about. Okay. Here we are. Say that. And for those of you at home that can't see these fabulous children, there are quite a few up here at front tucked in. It's very cozy. Okay, so here we have the Wonder Box. So would anyone care to come and open this up? Come on up there, Molly. You know, just give that latch. Oh, yeah, that's good. Thank you. That's so helpful. Okay. Now go ahead and pull. Oh, stay there. Pull out what's in there. Yep, each piece. Here, let's go over to the table here. Just set it on the table there. Yeah, that's a striker. We got a bell. Yeah, another bell. Okay, and pull that out. Great, thank you so much. Okay, so this morning I thought I wanted to talk about these are my singing bells, and so I thought we could talk about them a little bit, and I could tell you a bit about them. Do you see anything different about these bells? These two bells? Yes. They're shaped like bowls, yes. They are. Anyone else? Yes. Yes. Well, yeah, exactly. This is exactly what I wanted you to say. What? You come everywhere with me. Why do you think they're different? Why do you think one is smooth? Uh-huh. Yeah, that could be it. It's also that this one here is made by hand. It's hand hammered, like our bell here is hand hammered. You can see the light. See how the light changes a little bit? That's where you can see that there's indents from the hammered. And this one was made by a machine. You see, so it's very smooth. Here, so you can go back and sit down. And now I'm actually going to need a hand. Nathan? Oh, Nathan. Could you give me a hand, please? So, here, can you hold that? Yep.
This is Jason's first Wonderbox moment, so you guys are doing great for him. But if you want to throw a wrench into it, you can do that too, because that's what you do to me.
Note to self, never ask you for help again. No, kidding, I'm kidding. That's all true, kids. That's every single bit. Okay, so I'm going to ring this one and see. So let's just give this one a listen. And I'm going to ring this one. So when you heard those, do you want to know why the smooth one made sound sooner? Why do you think that it made sound sooner? Yes, Tessa. Because it's smoother. Exactly. This is going so well. But here's something I really love about this. The reason is because the hand-hammered one, there's imperfections. It's not perfect, right? And so it's harder to play. It's harder to get the sound out that way. But I would say that it makes a richer sound because there are more than one tone. Can you hear that? Let's listen to this again. Do you hear that? Do you hear that there? So the one that's hand hammered, there's actually overtones with it, which is what I think is so amazing. So when I first started practicing with singing bowls, my teacher asked me to do this thing. see how long I could hear it after I thought it wasn't ringing anymore. Does that make sense? You're trying to hear how long can you still hear it, and there's a moment in time where you're not really sure if it's ringing or not. So let's try that, but we have to be super still with our whole bodies. Let's try this and see how long. So let's everybody put their hands up. Put your hands up. And when you no longer hear it, yes, very dutiful, yes. When you no longer hear it, but bring your hand down, okay? Listen, as a collective group, you have exceptional hearing. I mean, that was remarkable. So I want to now ask, how did you have any feelings when you were listening to that, when you were seeing how long? Would anyone like to share if they had any thoughts? Anyone in the room? Yes. It felt peaceful. Okay. Good. Anyone else? Yes? Same things, I know. This one nailed it. It felt peaceful. Anyone else? Yes. Uh-huh. Yes. Right. Yes. Right. Yeah. Saying how amazing it is to hear the overtones. Mostly in the beginning, you can really hear them playing off of one another. Anyone else? Yes.
I felt a sensation of fullness.
A sensation of fullness. Thank you. And maybe one more? You could focus more. Yeah, so, one more. It makes you calm. Yes. So those are all how I feel. Maybe not at first when I start ringing it, but I definitely start feeling that way. But here's the other thing about the singing bell. This is the last thing before we get scooting. Is that it's not just for the person that's ringing. So if you live with anyone else in your house, so my family knows that these bells are super important to me. And whenever I ring them, they know that I'm doing something kind for myself, right? That I'm trying to make myself calm. So it's something that everyone carries with them in the house, this feeling of calmness. So now that we're all good and calm, let's get ourselves up for DRE. So we'll hum the kids out. And are there any announcements per RE?
I'll just remind everybody that preschoolers through first graders are going to be on the playground and need to be signed out by their families. And otherwise, we invite kids up through sixth grade out to our religious education programming under the tent. I'll also remind us that coming of age and OWL orientations start this afternoon. So if you are planning to come to those and have any questions, find me afterwards. And let's sing our kids out. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
It is so good to see the kids again, and they've grown so much since I saw them last. I can now recognize some of them. So on our gray hymnals, the ones that we're not looking at so much right now, If you go to the like the opening pages, you've heard about the Unitarian Universalist principles, right? We've heard about those before. You can just nod your head. Right, so there are 7 of them. And they start like the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and they keep going, and they quote unquote end with respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. These were added in the late 80s to Unitarian Universalism collectively. And there has been a lot of work, especially the last handful of years, as racial justice work has become more central to who we are as Unitarian Universalists, but also as people, to this congregation in particular. And one of the things that's happening across our association of, we have 1,000 congregations, is this question of adding an 8th principle that roots our work as anti-racist people. And so there is a new group within our community that's sort of like part of the racial justice team that Molly House and Gail Donaldson are going to talk to us about our work as a community to further this work of anti-racism and talk about this 8th principle. And it's going to actually be up on a slide in a second. So I'll give it over to Molly and to Gail.
Good morning, everyone. Talk about ringing the bells we still can ring, huh? I'm Molly House, and this is Gail Donaldson. Between us, we've been attending this church for about 60 years. Over the decades, I've served in many roles, from teaching OWL to rebuilding homes in New Orleans. I'm currently an at-large member of our church's board of directors, tasked with addressing issues of equity and inclusion. I'd like to begin with a little bit of background, which Nathan alluded to. As a denomination, Unitarian Universalism has a long and unfortunate history of racial discrimination, which culminated in a crisis, a promise, and a betrayal in the 1970s, which in turn led to our losing many members of color. The long-brewing issues boiled over again in 2017 after an unfair hiring decision for our southern region. In response, the UUA, which is the Association for all the UU congregations, bravely called for a complete reassessment of our whole religion, our governance, our basic guidelines. That resulted in 2 outcomes so far. One is a 2020 report called Widening the Circle of Concern, which I highly recommend. It's much more interesting than it seems like it's going to be. You can buy it from the In Spirit bookstore for $16 or download it for free. And 2, the proposal for a new 8th principle, in addition to the familiar 7 principles, to make it clear what justice means in Unitarian Universalism.
I'm a former president of the congregation and have served in many roles throughout the years that I've been here at the church, from president of the former Women's Alliance, chair of several committees, mentor and facilitator for the Coming of Age program, among many other roles. On the screen now, you will see the proposed 8th principle, and I'm going to read it aloud. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant and affirm to promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions.
Personally, I got excited about the 8th principle because of the relationships among these 3 elements: building beloved community, the search for spiritual wholeness, and the essential continuing work of undoing oppression, including racism, but not limited to racism. I'm also excited that the choice to adopt this principle belongs to each congregation. Paula Cole Jones, who co-wrote the eighth principle, said that people concerned about various kinds of oppression and inequity often ask her, "But what can I do?" Embracing this principle is something we can do in our own community. It's a chance to help make our religious organization become more equitable.
By June of this year, more than 100 congregations adopted or endorsed it, including many in our own region. Our UUAC board has empowered us to form a task force to make this project a lively and deep engagement for the congregation, leading up to a congregational-wide vote in the spring. Together, we hope to deepen our understanding of what it means to be a UU in terms of capital J justice, both as a theological concept and as an obligation to action. Our vote should be just one step in the process, just the opening of this question: what does a commitment to be an anti-oppression church call us to do?
As important as the social justice work will be, we also see this as essential to our spiritual growth. We can only really be whole if everyone is treated fairly. We want our denomination and our church to stand for justice in the world at a time when the principle of anti-oppression is more needed than ever. That's why I wanted us to join this effort.
Almost 25 years ago, I had the privilege of helping our congregation become a welcoming congregation, which means that we explicitly welcome LGBTQ2 people. That previous commitment may seem like just who we are now, but it took a lot of careful attention and a few difficult conversations to get there. We gave congregants many opportunities to meet in small groups and question themselves, their assumptions, their values. We worked with leadership and anyone who was curious about what it might mean for our congregation. Ultimately, we voted unanimously to embrace welcoming congregation in 2001. And I see in the audience a few people who were on that committee way back when. Polly. This year, we are embarking on a year of discernment, study, and discussion around the eighth principle. We hope you will join us for these events and activities. So first, the book group has agreed to work with us next month to read the UU Common Read for the first time ever. So the UU is all of the UU congregations will have a UU Common Read, and that book is Breathe, A Letter to My Sons by Imani Perry. And then next, there's going to be a two-part program called Why an Eighth Principle. And that is a chance to learn about and reflect on the meaning of this proposed principle and change. It will take place on two Tuesday nights, one on October 26th and one on November 16th. And other programs will follow those two. Those are just the first two that we're going to have. But be on the lookout for specifics.
On March 6th, we'll hold a congregational vote on whether or not to adopt the eighth principle. But in either case, our learning will continue. At any point, if you have any ideas or questions or interest in helping to shape this process, please reach out to me in person or via email. We welcome all to participate in this important work. As the president of the UUA, Susan Frederick Gray, recently stated, this is not a time for a casual faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you, Gail. Friends, take a deep breath. Find yourself inside yourself. And draw close to your center. Let us enter into this time together for stillness and meditation and prayer maybe the only time that we have all week, we begin with our prayer hymn, What We Need Is Here.
What we need is here. What we need is here. What we need is here. What we need is here. What we need is here. What we need is here. What we need is here. What we need is here.
It was Reinhold Niebuhr who wrote the Serenity Prayer, who reminds us that prayer, this word that all of us have different reactions to, prayer does not change things. Prayer changes people, changes us, and then people change things, is what he said. So this morning we offer these prayers, and again, these are written, for those of you who are new or can't remember because it's been so long, the prayer cards are just over on the left. And if you're at home watching and you want to make sure that we read something, just email one of us as the ministers and we will make sure that it gets shared. So this morning, prayers for loved ones, Catherine McHugh, for Catherine's mom, who is in palliative care with cancer. From Sandra Torres, whose neighbor's care dog, his name is Peanut, is recovering from a broken back. And an anonymous one here for the 700,000 deaths by the coronavirus that was announced, I think, on Friday. All those families and names and stories. Friends, for all of these names and so many more that fill the space, we light a candle. And as we look out through our clear windows, I always think with these windows, they remind us that we are not a faith for this sanctuary alone, not sanctuary from the world, but for the world. And so as you look out, this anonymous prayer, prayers for patience and guidance to all the parents in the world. Yeah. And for the marches for abortion access that were thousands strong yesterday, including in Boston. For all of these and many more, we light a candle. I don't know about you, but I forget to say thank you. I focus in on the news and I just forget to step back and to be so full of awe about the world. So Sandra here for Thanksgiving says, we went to the King Richard's Renaissance Fair, which is, I don't know, they're still doing that. We went for the first time, Sandra says, yesterday, and were amazed by the creativity and joy. And last but not least, just to soak up the season of autumn and the beauty that is around, we light a candle. Friends, please pray with me. Spirit of life and our God of many names and no names, One day we pray in our heart for a thanksgiving and for a peace that might last 100 years. But in the meantime, we ask, what are we going to do? And our prayer is to breathe. Feel your heartache and then breathe. Feel your joy and then breathe. Get clear on the things you're not going to negotiate on and then breathe. Look around at the people who love you and that you love. And then breathe. Blessed are you, breath, for all the ways that you sustain us. Let us be held in stillness together.
Guest House by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond.
The recipient of today's offertory is the National Alliance on Mental Illness of Massachusetts. They are a nonprofit organization and consider themselves, quote, the state's voice on mental illness. And it is their mission to improve the quality of life for people diagnosed with mental health conditions and their families. They seek to improve the public's awareness and understanding of mental health conditions and ensure that all people impacted by a mental health condition receive the support they need and in a timely fashion. May there come a day when the societal stigma associated with mental illness will be no more. And by supporting NAMI today, we do our part to bring that day closer. We're collecting, of course, on Realm. You can use the there's the QR code. Also in your pew, you'll see the order of service with the QR code. But if you would prefer to leave cash, there is a plate in the back of the sanctuary. Thank you so much for your generosity.
I won't tell you where I've been, only that it's so good to be home. It's possible to go so far down. Some of you might already know. Did you go there too? I won't tell you what I've seen, only that this world can be so mean. Brave souls shuffling up and down the halls. No one visits, no one even calls. Did you wait there too? I've been getting better these days, and I've been sleeping in my own bed again, and I've been dreaming in full color. Oh, goodbye sorrow, I've found another way. I won't tell you what I might have done if not for my dearest ones. Chemistry can sort of leave you in the lurch. I'm just glad they found a cure. Did you find one too? I've been getting better these days, and I've been sleeping in my own bed again, and I've been dreaming in full color. Oh, goodbye sorrow, I've found another way. But if the world should really pale, dark night of
Thank you, Katie. So it is early February of this past year, right at the beginning of my sabbatical, and I am struggling. I call my sister. I think I need a mental health intervention, I say. Over the phone, I hear her go into high alert mode. Our family has felt the tragic effects of untreated mental illness before. No, I assure her. Not like that. I'm so dysregulated, I can't seem to get back on track. Can you help me make a list of things that I need to do for the rest of the afternoon, and then will you call me back when the kids go to bed? We both have so many words, so many tools from so many years of therapy. Okay, she says, what are you needing? Well, I'm leaving for a walk right now while I talk to you. And then I really need lunch. I'll call my best friend, email my therapist to see if she has an open appointment this week, journal, watch some distracting TV, order takeout. How many times is too many times to order takeout in 1 week? I wonder aloud, with some amount of self-judgment creeping in. There is no upper limit in moments like these, she reassures me. We make a plan to check back in later and hang up. I'm still on the verge of tears or panic or both, but I'm on a brisk walk and I try to notice what's around me. Deep breaths. The sun is bright. The air is crisp. I have a plan for the rest of the day. Take care of basic needs, distract, process. I'll get through this. Our mom is in the hospital with a mysterious heart condition, which ends up being a one-off but very scary incident. I have rushed out to stay at her house and take care of her animals, and I find myself isolated in my childhood home in a pandemic winter hellscape, while we wait on edge to hear if she's going to be okay. I have just started my sabbatical, and I have so much time to think, to be alone. Too much time, really. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Suddenly it all comes crashing in and hits me all at once. The pandemic, the isolation, the past grief and trauma that this pandemic has stirred up for me. I finally have a moment to breathe, to catch my breath. And most of all, with all of this time to think and feel, I am starting to come to terms with the fact that my partnership of 10 years ended earlier that fall, about a year ago now. In retrospect, it all makes a lot of sense. The feelings of being trapped, of my world narrowing, of being alone. The grief, the loss, the anxiety, the worry, the pandemic, the end of my relationship. A lot has happened. But I knew even in that moment that my brain was distorting what it all meant. This is not new to me. I have a brain that is not always kind to me. It tells me things that when I am in a grounded and healthy place, I know are not true. But sometimes my brain likes to make up wild stories. It sees the isolation and aloneness of, say, being in a global pandemic, quarantining to get a COVID test at my mom's house so I can take care of her when she gets out of the hospital. It takes that fact and it somehow twists it into a story along the lines of, no one loves you. You will always be alone. This is how it will always feel. Do your brains ever do this to you? Feelings are real, but they don't always tell the truth. These are words that I say to myself from time to time when I feel like my feelings are disproportionate to what is happening in front of me, or my brain is distorting their truth. My feelings are very real. I am experiencing real suffering, but they don't always reflect the facts. The facts are that there are so many people in my life who love me, that each situation is temporary, that the pandemic has been a setup to sabotage my mental health, and perhaps yours too. And I try to remind myself compassionately that there may be a gap between what my brain is telling me and what is actually happening. I have been here before, the spiral of anxiety and self-doubt and depression. Sometimes it has been in response to a very understandable situation, and other times it's just snuck up on me, surprised me, no known cause. Still, having been here many times in my life before, this spring it takes me almost 6 weeks to recognize the familiar spiral for what it is, adjust my medication, move my twice-monthly therapy back to weekly. Medication and therapy have pulled me out of this downward spiral more than once. And as an aside, I cannot say enough good things about therapy. The tools that I've gotten in therapy have made me a better person, a better minister, sister, partner, friend. 10 out of 10 stars would recommend. I know that I am not alone in struggling with my mental health in these last 20 months. Gosh, if you have struggled in the past 20 months, you are so not alone. The National Institute of Mental Health, which is part of the NIH, reports that during the pandemic, 2 out of 5 adults in the US reported symptoms of anxiety or depressive disorders, substance abuse, trauma-related disorders, or suicidal ideation. And that is nearly double the pre-pandemic rates. And it is so understandable. For some of us, our regular routines and practices that support our mental health may have significantly been disrupted during the pandemic. For some of us, these difficult times might be bringing up old grief or trauma or reactivating things we haven't thought about in years. For many of us, the increased isolation has increased loneliness and depression. Some of us may feel like we've exhausted all of the coping mechanisms that we have. Others of us may feel outraged or hopeless or overwhelmed by the world or numb to it. Some of us may be drinking or using more drugs than we ever have. Some of us may be sleeping worse than we usually do. And it just hasn't let up. Most disasters, most crises are an immediate singular moment, and then the recovery is able to begin. 9/11, the Boston Marathon bombing, hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, they have one moment, and then the recovery begins. But this, in contrast, has been a slow-rolling crisis. It has been so long, and it's still going on. We're still in it. And some of us may feel like the rug has been pulled out from under us, first with our worlds flipped upside down in March of 2020, and then again this summer as many of us got vaccinations and thought that it would allow us to reopen, and then the Delta variant changed the landscape entirely. And some of us may feel that we have shorter fuses these days, or are struggling to find compassion with people who have different views from ours, especially with things related to the pandemic. Others of us who have kids under 12 may feel like the world has reopened and we've been left behind, feeling abandoned and anxious about how to navigate a world with unvaccinated children. Some of us may be worrying about the mental health of kids in our lives, or we may know young people who are struggling with anxiety of returning to in-person things after a year of not socializing. Some of us here may be those young people who are struggling. Others of us may feel like our life is on pause. Our ability to make plans, to anticipate joyful events in the future is less accessible now. Some of us may be worn thin by the uncertainty of how the future will be, and others of us may simply feel like we are languishing, a feeling that the New York Times described as a sense of stagnation and emptiness, somewhat joyless and aimless, not flourishing, not depressed, just languishing. And others of us may feel like we are thriving right now. And if that is true for you, I am truly deeply happy that that is the case. This may not be the sermon that you need to hear for yourself right now, but it may be the sermon that you need to hear for a friend, a neighbor, a partner. Let this sermon be an invitation to reach out to a loved one who may be struggling, to deepen your compassion and understanding of those who struggle with their mental health. Friends, it can be so hard to talk about mental health. I even worried in writing this sermon that it would be too, depressing. And I know that there are some of us who are just really done hearing about how hard things are right now, and others of us who really need your ministers to tell the truth about how much people are struggling right now. Both of these are very understandable and very valid ways that people are coping. And this is so important. Do you remember right before the start of the pandemic, our church put up an installation bringing awareness to the mental health struggles of people in our community? We had just barely put it up when the pandemic hit. We didn't really get a chance to celebrate it and leave it up because we all closed down. But I was remembering that this week and remembering that we have always known that mental health is too important not to talk about. We live in a culture that has stigmatized mental illness and talking about mental health in a way that we would never stigmatize any other kind of health care, as though our brains are not also a part of our bodies, and as though our mental health is not part of our health as a whole. Many of you remember, because you were here with me in that horrible time, in January of 2018, almost 4 years ago, when my dad took his own life. My dad was a soft-spoken and gentle engineer. He grew up in an era where talking about feelings, specifically as a man, was to admit weakness. And he denied that he was struggling for so long in an effort to portray an image to the world. He wouldn't talk about it with his doctors or his family or his friends. And though he was so deeply compassionate with others, including his loved ones who struggle with their mental health and their substance use, it was still shameful in his mind to struggle with his own mental health. And I share this because while I understand it, and while I have felt that stigma myself, I know all too well that shame can be deadly, and that stigma around talking about mental health can be deadly. And there is no shame in struggling. There is no shame in asking for help. Asking for help is one of the most courageous things you can do when you are struggling. As your ministers, both Reverend Nathan and I have noticed that more of you have shared with us about your mental health struggles lately. We've noticed, anecdotally at least, that many of you are struggling, that many of you are concerned for kids and teens in your life. And we see you. We want to reflect back to you. You are not alone. This is really, really hard. Researchers Emily and Amelia Nagoski say that all feelings are like a tunnel, that in order to complete what they describe as the stress cycle, we have to go all the way through the tunnel to avoid the buildup of stress hormones in our body. We have to feel our feelings in order to move through them. And then we have to do something to signal to our bodies that the feeling has passed. Physical activity, breathing, laughter, positive social interaction, physical affection, all can help us move through our feelings and complete the stress cycle. But first we have to feel our feelings, really feel them in order to move through them. And it can be so, so painful to really feel our feelings, especially when they are the hard or uncomfortable ones. But you don't have to do it alone. And while there is no magic cure, and there is no magic pill, there are things that can help, and more so, there are people who can help. We know that access to mental health care can be so tricky, especially right now, but we also want to say, if you don't know where to start, you can always reach out to me, to Reverend Nathan, to Jason. Friends, I believe that we, as a UUAC community, I believe that we are a community that can help hold the reality of the struggles of one another's lives, including our mental health struggles. I believe that we are a community that can bear witness to the suffering that we experience, even if that suffering exists mostly in our own minds, because we know that that suffering is real too. I believe that we are a community where we can be real with one another. I believe that we are a community where we can be brave with one another. I believe that we are a community where we can remind each other that we are not alone. And most importantly, I believe that we are a community that can talk about mental health and remind one another that mental health is real, it is important, and it is not something that we need to feel shame around. Beloved, may we be for one another a community where we can bring our whole selves, even the parts of us that feel broken. May we hold hope for one another when hope is hard to find. And may we hold each other with care, reminding one another always, you are not alone. May it be so, and amen. We are going to sing our final hymn, hum our final hymn while Sarah sings, There's a River Flowing in My Soul.
There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind.
Friends, let us share in our call to ministry. We go forth into the world in peace to act with works of love, to affirm each person's dignity, and to cherish the living earth. Our benediction is one of my favorites from Wayne Arneson. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. May it be so, and amen.